Hey everybody, this is our lesson on graphing. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to interpret graphical data and determine the best graphs for given data. So we have three different types of graphs that we look at in this course. And just as a refresher, a graph is a visual display of information and data. So they are used very commonly in the lab. So our three types that we look at are either a line graph, a bar graph, or a circle graph, a pie chart, same thing. So you have seen all three of these before, especially in math classes, but we're going to look at each one a little bit here. And there's just a funny picture. So the first one is a line graph. So this is used to show trends or continuous change, so over time. Your dependent variable is plotted on your y-axis, and your independent variable is plotted on your x-axis. So some names to know here as well, just so if you hear either, you know that they're the same thing. So your dependent variable, remember this is the one that changes in response to your independent variable, is known as your responding variable. And your independent is the one you change to see what happens to something else. That's the manipulated variable. So good graphs have the following categories that we're listing. So a title, a label on each axis, so we know what we're measuring, what we're analyzing. Scales that are easy to count by, so 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s. Don't pick like 7s, something random like that. So, this is what a line graph looks like, because it's continuous over time. Now, this is not a very good one because it doesn't have labels or a title, or we don't know how it's numbered, but this is just to show you what it looks like. So the next one is a bar graph. And this is used for collecting information by counting. And thick bars are used to show the relationships among data. So like you could have different colored bars all on the same graph, and they kind of show, like I could compare first block, second block, and third block all with a different color bar on each unit test, and we could see, oh, did second block do better than the others, or oh, which one fell behind on this unit, or oh, they all made the same score here, things like that. And this just shows you, what a bar graph looks like. So then we have circle graphs, and these are known to show how a fixed quantity is broken into parts. So a percentage graph, right? If a whole circle is 100%, then we would break it up into chunks, and those chunks would measure percentages of how that is broken up. So for instance, we could say our class is graded out of 100%, and I could say, okay, well, 60% of that is tests and projects. So the biggest chunk of my pie chart or my circle graph would be tests and projects. Then we have our minor assignments, which would be 25%. So that would be a 25% chunk. And then the last little chunk that's left, that 15%, would be our daily assignments. Again, known as a pie graph, which is what you've probably heard this more often represented. And a circle represents the total amount present. So that could be out of 100%. And I say it's out of percent. If we're counting out of 500 students, then our whole pie graph is out of 500 students. You would say, okay, 300 students did this, 107 did this, so on and so forth. So this just shows a pie chart with different types of pie. Obviously, the most popular was apple, which I agree with, and then cherry or strawberry and peach. So now let's talk about calculating percentages, which is how you would show that data on a pie chart. So first, you have to determine the total number of items. Second, you have to determine the number of hours in each activity by total, which you'll see in a second. It's going to show up on the side. I don't know why it's not showing up already. You're going to multiply those answers by 100 to get it into a percent, and then you round to the nearest whole number. So if we have three, let's say our total was 10, one section was 3, Okay, you're going to get 0.3, multiply it by 100, get your value there. Okay, so here's our example. And I'm going to X out of my picture here so you can see the whole data, which is in your notes as well. So we're going to calculate percentages of how students spend their day. So step 1, determine the total number of items. So when you do that, get my pen out. When you do that, you're going to add all of these numbers together. So 8 plus 6 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 24. So we have 24 total items. Oops. And then we're going to divide the number of hours for each activity by that total. So for example, we're going to do, I'm just going to do one of these. You could do the rest of them if you need to. 8 divided by 24. 0.33. Okay. So you would do that for each of them. And then you are going to go through and you are going to multiply each of those answers by 100. So again, I'll do this one for you just so you can see it. So we're going to take that 0.33 times 100, which is going to give us 33%. I don't have to round that to the nearest whole number because that is a whole number, but that means my percentage for this first block should be 33%. Remember, all of these, by the time you're done, should be added up to 100%. So go ahead and get this answer down, and then you're going to do this for the last 5 blocks. Okay. All right, guys, so that's the end of this lesson, and hopefully by now you can interpret graphical data.